Good evening. This is meeting of the school committee, July 16th. Could we all please rise to salute the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Scott?
Here.
Mr. Conway?
Here.
Mayor Elliott?
Here.
Mr. Gendron?
Here.
Mr. Leary?
Here.
Ms. Martin?
Here.
Ms. Ross Sikowicz?
Here.
7 present.
7 present. Good evening, everyone. It's a regular meeting of the Lowell School Committee. First item on the agenda, we have minutes. Approval of the minutes of the special meeting of the school committee, FY 2015 budget on Monday, June 16th. Motion to accept and place on file by Ms. Scott, second by Ms. Ross Sikowicz. Excuse me. All those in favor signify by saying aye, and the opposed, that motion carries. Item number 4, again, another set of minutes. Approval of the minutes of the regular school committee meeting of Wednesday, June 18th, 2014. Motion to accept and place on file by Ms. Martin, seconded by Mr. Leary. All those in favor signify by saying aye, and the opposed.
Aye.
That motion carries as well. Item number 5, again, another set of minutes. Approval of the minutes of the special meeting of the school committee on Wednesday, June 25th, 2015. Motion to accept and place on file by Mr. Gendron, seconded by Mr. Conway. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And the opposed, that motion carries. That completes the minutes section of the agenda. Next section of the agenda is permission to enter. Permission to enter, July 16th, 2014. Motion to approve by Mr. Conway, second by Mr. Gendron. This requires a roll call. I'm sorry, Jay, Mr. Lang, did you have something you wanted to read?
Yep, I can read the contracts for you for approval for tonight. First, we're entering into a contract to SP&R Transportation of New Hampshire for $695,856. This is to amend the existing contract, and grant funds are utilized to provide special education transportation to summer school and other after-school programs. Second contract to North Reading Bus Incorporated for $589,077. Again, this is an amendment to their contract, and various grant funds provide busing for after-school and summer programs. Cabot Risk Strategies for $24,850. This provides a student athletic accident insurance, and it's funded through the school department's student accident insurance account. A contract to Early Childhood Associates for $93,050, and this is part of our Early Childhood Birth to Grade 3 Alignment Grant, funded by that grant. To Sun Associates for $20,000, and this is to contract with them to provide the evaluation for the Birth to Grade 3 Alignment Grant, again funded through that grant. And then 2 lease agreements we're requesting approval on. The first is to the Bon Marché Trust. This was a 3-year lease with 2 one-year option extensions. The total value of the 3-year lease is $906,005. And a second lease to Bertos Nominee Trust, a total dollar amount $248,034. And again, this is for a 3-year lease with 2 one-year options. And this is to house the central administration offices. And these 2 recommendations are coming forward as a result of the recently completed RFP. So I would recommend approval of those contracts.
Mr. Conway?
Move to approve.
Move to approve by Mr. Conway, seconded by Mr. Gendron. Mr. Gendron.
So, Mr. Lang, I wonder if you could just give us a quick summary of the whole office relocation situation.
Sure. We had gone out a second time, as you recall, to RFP to try to open up the parameters a bit, look at different possibilities as far as a group may not have the full 40 square foot space we were looking for. We wanted to make it as open as possible. We changed one of the parameters the second time around, and we're doing a flat 3-year lease with 2 options, and those will be exercised later on at the discretion of the school committee. for a fourth and a fifth year, but that pricing is included within the base bid. When we went out the second time, we had 4 responders to the RFP. The first was the Bon Marché Trust, and they basically proposed the bookstore at the old UMass Lowell bookstore in the Bon Marché building on the first floor, the entire 4th floor of the Bon Marché building, and then half of the 5th floor. They're going to relocate some existing tenants on the 5th floor, and that's about 30,000 square feet. They're making up the other 10,000 square feet in the Cherry and Webb building under their proposal, and they were proposing putting a training center and offices in the basement, as well as the full 4th floor, and that was going to require a build-out. So they proposed that as one 40,000 square foot package. Across the street from 155 Merrimack, 144, right above Giovanni's sneaker store, they proposed, and they had just the full second floor of their building was open, approximately 10,000 square feet. And they were looking to be kind of an add-on to someone else if they were looking for an extra 10,000 square feet. The third responder was 45 Merrimack Street. They own the building above the CVS on Merrimack Street, and they proposed about 35,000 square feet of space on the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th floors of their building, and then the Family Resource Center being located on the backside. The fourth responder this time was the Boot Mills, the 100-foot of John Street. The ownership that had owned Wanalancet and put in a proposal the first time recently acquired the Boot Mills, and they put in a proposal the second time because it was a little closer to our operation. And they were proposing 40,000 square feet on 2 different floors there. One of the critical factors for us, obviously, was cost. And when we looked at the 4 proposals, the Bon Marché property and the Cherry Webb combo, they came in a little over $11 a square foot in total cost. The next proposer at 45 Merrimack Street, they had a range between $1,450 and $1,650 each of the 5 years of the contract. And then the Boot Mill came in at $1,550 a square foot for the term. They carried that same amount. Across the street at 144 Merrimack Street, I believe, again, it was only 10,000 square feet. They were in the high 11s as far as the square foot cost that was proposed. And basically, when we evaluated the proposals, the space, the total package with the Bon Marché and the Cherry Webb, because of cost and facility, was a very good proposal. So we were narrowing in on that. When we met with the real estate representative and the folks from Bon Marché, the 30,000 square feet, the bookstore, the 4th floor, and the 5th floor, were really perfect for us. Being in the basement wasn't ideal of the Cherry Webb building, and then also the 4th floor was going to have some pretty significant build-out for us. In the space across the street, the 10,000 square feet, all on the 2nd floor of 144, would provide us the same square footage, all on one floor. It'll be a little more conducive to our work because you literally walk out the door across the crosswalk and you're in the building. So that particular responder was looking for $10,000 a month rent for his 10,000 square feet, or $120 a year. When we did the square footage cost breakdown on the Bon Marché and the Cherry Webb building, we would have been paying about $90,000 a year for the Cherry Webb piece of it. So we negotiated with both entities and basically negotiated a deal where the Bertos Nominee Trust at 144 came down from 120 to the 90,000 a year. So we're paying the same dollar amount we would have paid for both 155 and 107 Merrimack, the Bon Marché and Cherry Webb, but the environment's going to be a little more conducive to us. All of our operation is going to be on the 2nd floor instead of being spread between the basement and the 4th. Cost-wise, it's the same. And economic development-wise to the city, we're now filling the Bon Marché building. We're picking up 10,000 square feet of office space across the street, which would have been difficult to fill. The Cherry and Webb building, there's potential that the Bon Marché folks will be able to relocate people to that building now because we won't be taking that space. So it really fills up a lot of real estate downtown at the same cost to us, and it's a little more conducive being across the street and all on one floor. So that's how it played out the second time around.
Okay. So if I can just for my own benefit, summarize a little bit, what you're proposing is that we put the majority of the administration in the Bon Marché building with about 20% or so across the street in the building over Giovanni's. And then the former bookstore there, former UMass Lowell bookstore, becomes the Student Information Center. Is that
Correct.
Correct. Okay. And that's, if my math is right, that's about $1.25 million over 3 years.
Correct.
Adding those two numbers up. So now, how does that work from a budgetary standpoint? Do we we only have to budget a portion of it for this year, correct?
Correct. When we went through the, and the other odd timing of this is our lease isn't going to run a traditional fiscal year. It's going to be August 1st to July 31st, where we would usually do a July 1 to June 30th. But for this particular 3-year and then 2 1-year extension leases, we're basically going to occupy the 4th floor of the Bon Marché building in its entirety on or about August 1st. If the lease is approved tonight by the school committee, and then Tuesday night it'll go to the city council. We've already begun kind of work on that because we have to relocate so quickly. So we'll be getting the 2nd floor folks at the Rogers School into that site August 1st. So we would start paying rent August 1st only for the 4th floor of Bon Marché. Under the proposals, they had to tell us when they'd be able to get the rest of the space ready, and they had originally said they'd be able to do the build-out relocation and have us in the bookstore on the 5th floor by February 1st. So at that point in time, we're looking at paying about 5 months of the fiscal year's lease or 6 months overall for the lease itself in that first year. You had appropriated $500,000 in the budget for 15. So when I did the math for this first year, it was coming out to, again, if we kept those timelines, if we kept the August 1st for the square footage on the 4th floor, and we did the staggered move in February, and then we actually started to occupy the Bertos property around October 1st. We're looking at paying about $306,000 in this fiscal year in real cost. So you're going to have about a $200,000 savings because what was budgeted. What we are going to be able to do is possibly work with, and the lease would be structured in such a fashion, if we can work with the Bon Marché folks to free up or build out the bookstore and the 5th floor sooner now, because they have some options where they can relocate folks to. We could actually move earlier and pick up that space. So it's conceivable we can do that this fall before the holidays, which will then also give the Rogers School some time to really kind of clean out and set up and function as a school after the holidays, which would be ideal. So the absolute maximum over the course of a fiscal year is going to be that 423. But I'm projecting at this point in time, if we maintain the current schedule, we're only looking at about 306.
Okay.
So there's going to be approximately $200,000 savings. As we get a little deeper into it, I'll know for sure. But then even for next year's budget, we had appropriated $500. So if it was a straight line item budget, you're still going to be saving about $75,000 from what we budgeted.
So the additional money, the $200,000 or so, will that automatically go into the suspense account, or does it stay in the line item?
It stays in the line item itself, and then really at any time, maybe when we firm up a little bit more of the dates and we know exactly when we're going to move, at the first quarter or second quarter, we can bring a recommendation to move the amount that we're not going to use this year into the suspense account, or you could allocate it to another line of the budget. Okay. But for right now, it'll just be locked in that line. It won't go anywhere.
Okay. I think this is a good solution. I think that bringing the school administration downtown is a good thing for the city. I think that's going to boost the economy in the downtown. $11 a square foot seems like a pretty reasonable rate to me, and I think we're going to have a nice central location. So, so I think it's a good solution. Thank you.
Further discussion on this item? Roll call.
Ms. Scott?
Yes.
Mr. Conway?
Yes.
Mayor Elliott?
Yes.
Mr. Gendron?
Yes.
Mr. Leary?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Ms. Ross Sikowicz?
Yes.
7 yeas, approved.
Next item is contract approval for Superintendent Jean M. Franco. Any discussion on this? Mr. Lang, I don't...
No, the law office prepared the superintendent's contract from your last meeting, and it's was presented with the packet. It's just a approval of the contract as provided.
Mr. Conway?
Move to approve.
Motion to approve by Mr. Conway, seconded by Ms. Ross Sikowicz. Roll call.
Ms. Scott?
Yes.
Mr. Conway?
Yes.
Mayor Elliott?
No.
Mr. Gendron?
Yes.
Mr. Leary?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Ms. Ross Sikowicz?
Yes.
6 yeas, 1 nay, approved.
Motion approves. Next item, contract approval for Assistant Superintendent M. Claire Abrams. Motion to approve by Ms. Rosikowicz, second by Ms. Scott. Discussion? Roll call.
Ms. Scott?
Yes.
Mr. Conway?
Yes.
Mayor Elliott?
No.
Mr. Gendron?
Yes.
Mr. Leary?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Ms. Rosikowicz?
Yes.
6 yeas, 1 nay, approved.
Motion carries. Next item is Central Administration Office lease. We did just vote the appropriation, but now it's requirement to vote the lease.
Move approval.
Move approval by Mr. Larry, second by Mr. Gendron. Roll call.
Ms. Scott?
Yes.
Mr. Conway?
Yes.
Mayor Elliott?
Yes.
Mr. Gendron?
Yes.
Mr. Leary?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Ms. Rosikowicz?
Yes.
7 yeas, approved.
That concludes petition to enter section of the agenda. Next item is memorials. We have 2 memorials, and if there's no objection, just like a motion to suspend the rules to also recognize the family members of all those family members that were that died in the fire. Motion by Mr. Gendron, second by Mr. Conway. To suspend the rules, all those in favor signify by saying aye, and the opposed, that motion carries. Under memorials, we have on number 10, we have Derek J. Lyons, son of Peggy Lyons, Green Elge Elementary School paraprofessional. We also have Anita Beeson, mother-in-law of Amy Beeson, Lincoln Elementary School teacher. We also have members of the Sock family who were killed in the fire. Torrance Sock, his wife Ellen Long, their three of their 5 children, Sayuri Sock, Anthony Sock, and Ryan Sock, 7, 12, and 9 years old, respectively. Also killed was Tina Christakis and Robert Downs, who lived in another apartment number 4. Could we all please rise for a moment of silence and darken chambers? May they all rest in peace. Next section of the agenda, motions. First motion of the evening by Mr. Gendron and Ms. Scott. Request the superintendent replace the class ranking system at Lowell High School with the GPA profile distribution and begin reporting it for all grade levels along with GPA for the school year 2014-2015. No second necessary. Ms. Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This motion was actually the original motion made by Mr. Leary and myself. We did have a recommendation that came to us from the superintendent and the headmaster at the time that excluded the grade point average reporting in the 9th and 10th grade, and it also excluded the grade point average distribution. Since that time, there seems to be concerns that have risen from students that we heard from, one of them, about knowing their grade point average for their National Honor Society status. So I went on this motion with Mr. Gendron basically to bring back the original motion that Mr. Leary and I had brought forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Scott. Mr. Gendron?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, this is kind of a follow-on to the motion we had on at the prior meeting, requesting that the headmaster give us a report and recommendation on what to do in this matter. But following the meeting, Ms. Scott and I had a conversation. She educated me that the original motion that she and Mr. Leary, as she said, brought forward really didn't request the removal of the GPA. It rather requested, and not even a removal of the class rank, rather it requested a modification of the class rank so that it was a profile as opposed to a numerical order, right? So it's a little less imposing, a little less threatening to students. I noticed we also have a letter from the headmaster on our desk this evening kind of supporting that approach. So, I think what we discovered is that we were in violent agreement about how we should move forward on that. I think this meets the needs of our students and our parents, as well as addresses the original intent behind the motion that was made a couple of years ago to make that class rank less threatening. So I hope that the committee will see fit to support it so that we can get started in September with this new procedure. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gendron. We'll let you catch your breath, Mr. Headmaster, but we're just discussing one of the items which you just sent a report to us on GPA and class rank. I don't know if you'd like to say a few words.
Sorry? I can't run like Mr. Leary or Mr. Gendron. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Actually, I just was on vacation. I thought we were going to do this in August, but so I tried to kind of revisit everything the last couple of days, and Mrs. McLeod came back from her vacation this morning, so we had a chance to kind of revisit a lot of the documents. There was obviously a debate about this a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. We've done some research just through national periodicals, a lot of the educational research on it, looked at the feedback from other high schools in Massachusetts, and many schools do not rank the students anymore. It's just an ongoing debate. We do think, though, that having a GPA on a report card is just a positive thing for kids. They could see, what their grades look like, and to have a ranking in ranges also gives students and families an idea of where they fit. We recommend the 5, 10, and 20% because when you get below that, you're really kind of caught with a large portion of kids that could be 21 or 88 for that matter. So we thought that gives you a measure of really where they would stand, and looking at colleges, they have an idea what that rank would look like. And that obviously have to be done by semester because we do quarterly grades. So that's what we recommend. Okay?
Great. Thank you, Mr. Headmaster. Appreciate it.
Okay.
Mr. Gendron?
If I could just ask a question, Mr. Martin, over the past 2 years, at least for freshmen and sophomore, there's been no indication of grade point average. I assume all of those statistics are maintained someplace.
Correct.
That somebody has them, and that
Correct.
we can just report it, and it's not something that we're going to have to recreate? Or is that...
No, we'll meet with the MIS staff and go through the first group that was not in the calculation, and we'll have it ready for the end of the first semester this year coming.
Okay,
Not a
thank you.
problem.
Thank you.
No. Okay.
Further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye, and the opposed?
Aye.
That motion carries unanimously. Next item, next motion by Mr. Conway and myself, request superintendent and mayor meet with public safety officials, school officials, and school personnel for the purpose of reinstituting a task force on school and city safety. Mr. Conway.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Number of years ago, there was a task force that used to meet at the high school, and I think probably one of the reasons because it was centrally located, and there were various representatives throughout the entire community. For example, there was a representative from, I believe, the manager's office. The headmaster obviously was there, representative from Central, housemasters, security, crisis intervention, naturally the police, the SROs. At that particular time, I believe there was a gang unit, and there was always a representative from that, juvenile, and also courts. There were a number of people that sat down, and the reason why it was, and we usually met on a Monday morning, and the purpose was to give an update of what was going on in the community, and it was I think, an incredible exchange of ideas and information that took place. And periodically, they would invite other individuals, perhaps somebody from guidance or from another particular department that might be able to help out. I think that when I look back at that, it was extremely positive. And I think it prevented a lot of issues that could have developed in schools throughout the entire city, and also the city of Lowell itself. I met with Captain Crowley back a couple weeks ago, and I went over this with him, and at that particular time, he was a sergeant, and he was part of that task force, and we talked about how successful and how important that was. And for whatever reason, it kind of fell by the wayside. I think that it would be good if we could take that back out of the closet, dust it off, and, you know, it already exists, the template exists, and I think that it was extremely important with this exchange of ideas to be very preventative, and I think it solved any type of potential problems or issues right at its very beginning. So again, I'd like to see that happen if at all possible, and I hope my colleagues back me up on this motion. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Conway. Further discussion on this? If there's no objection by members, I'd just like to say a few words from the podium. I had discussions in light of sort of the spike or the spate of violence that has taken place in the city. I do think it's a good idea that we revisit this task force, and essentially to get a better understanding on behavior patterns, and have discussions with those individuals that have, you know, direct communication and interaction with young students or students of any age, quite frankly. You know, as I suppose the element of crime changes to some degree, it's important for public safety officials to get, you know, up-to-date information on what they see happening, and the best place to get that clearly are from those that interact with them at many levels, including you know, different aspects of the school. So I think it's important for us to continue to look at and improve our efforts to gather information, communicate that to public safety officials, and see how we can, you know, address some of the elements of crime in the community. So, Mr. Conway?
Yeah, just to mention one other thing too, is that when I talked to Captain Crowley, he thought it would be a great idea to have this obviously brought forward, and he was very willing. He wanted to relay the message that he would be very willing to work on that and to help out in putting it back together again. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Conway. For discussion, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye, and the opposed, that motion carries. Next motion of the evening by Ms. Martin, requests the administration provide a report on the 2014-2015 school year pre-K lottery, including steps to improve the process moving forward. Second by Ms. Scott. Ms. Martin?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I will say it was my mistake not including my colleague, Ms. Rosikowicz, as my co-maker of this motion, so I apologize for that.
Well, we'll strike Ms. Scott and Ms. Rosikowicz as the second
Then I
on the
apologize
motion,
to
if you don't mind.
Ms. Scott, sorry. A very basic motion. Obviously, this year we had some concerns around the preschool lottery. There was some missteps, I think, which I think we all recognize, and I know actions were taken to rectify that. My concern is that moving forward, we just have an opportunity. It happened during an extremely busy time, both for the committee and the administration. We never had an opportunity to really do the appropriate postmortem of finding out exactly what happened, how the corrections were made, and how we really ensure that this doesn't happen again in the future. I would recommend that this be sent to the Student Support Services Subcommittee headed by my colleague, Ms. Rosikowicz, so that hopefully they'll be able to review the materials and be able to report back to the full committee, hopefully during our August session. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Martin. Ms. Rosikowicz?
No, I think it's a terrific motion. You know, it's incredibly stressful for parents of preschool children, you know, for all of our parents of all of our school children, quite frankly, when it comes to placement into any of our schools in the district. Quite often, our parents are left sort of in limbo till late summer, until they receive their school assignments. And, you know, in this city, you know, especially for those pre-K student families, it's a matter of if their children are not going to be placed in Lowell Public Schools pre-K programs, well, that parent needs enough opportunity and quite frankly, resources, cash resources, to find a private resource for their children. So I think it's incumbent upon us to determine, number one, what went wrong, and also, that this is highly unacceptable. And I know that, there was no ill intent in any of this, but this should never, ever happen, ever again. Thank you.
Thank you. All those in favor of the motion as amended to refer this report to the Student Support Subcommittee, signify by saying, Student Support Services Subcommittee, excuse me, signify by saying aye. And the opposed?
Aye.
That motion carries. Subcommittee reports. We have a Curriculum and Instruction Subcommittee meeting. Report and approval of the minutes of the meeting Tuesday, July 1st, 2014. Madam Chairperson, Ms. Martin.
Thank you very much. The meeting was attended by myself as chair and Ms. Kim Scott. From Central Administration, we had Superintendent Franco, Assistant Superintendent Abrams, and then also Mr. Jeff Guazda, who's our coordinator of mathematics for grades 5 through 12. We did have a number of topics to discuss, so as we kind of go through, I will try to keep this as concise as I can. Recognizing that for any individuals who do want more information, it is available on the website. So for any interested parties, you can get some additional information there. First topic that we discussed was a product called iReady, which has been piloted in our district at several school sites. It has shown some real promise for us. It is a program that allows us to track achievement. It also provides some curriculum supports for teachers as they go through this process. I will say that I think what struck me most is that if this report sounds familiar, it's because you've heard it many times before. We talk a great deal about the different software packages, the different data management packages that we use, and certainly we hear the best of all that they have to offer. I think the key thing that came out of our subcommittee meeting was certainly the intent of the subcommittee to recommend to the full committee that we do move forward in implementing 2 additional schools to pilot this particular software product next year. We'd be adding the Moody and the Green Elge to the Lincoln, Washington, and Rogers schools that are already using the product. So I guess I would begin by making that as a motion to the full committee to move forward with including the 2 new schools, Moody and Green Elge, in this pilot project.
Motion by, or recommendation by the subcommittee to recommend to the committee as a whole to move forward with the addition of 2 new schools to implement the iReady system for the 2014-2015 school year. Moved to approve by Ms. Rosikowicz, seconded by Mr. Leary. Mr. Leary on the motion.
Just quickly, one, I just wanted, this really came out of, I think, the Lawrence School Department through Mr. Santos, who we hired. I think it's an excellent hire who brought this initiative forward, and I just want to give kudos to him for bringing something that has a lot of positive, so far really appears to be something positive with a lot of good effect. And I think the key is as we break down the silos between curriculum and technology and integrate them, that this is some of the results that we're really going to have. So I'm very excited to see the pilot's going to be extended, and I'm definitely going to vote for that. I think if we should probably look at this at the end of the semester and see if we can implement it in other areas as well, if it is proven to be as effective as I hope it will be. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Leary. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those in favor signify by saying aye, and the opposed, that motion carries. Doesn't require a roll call. Ms. Martin?
The second topic in this area was, and I think it really just came out of this conversation around the iReady product, is the recognition that we have a great many software products and, again, data management systems in place. I would like to recommend, it was a motion by Ms. Scott, that we recommend again to the full committee that, I'm trying to see how you phrase this here, to ask the curriculum and the technology areas, excuse me, within the administration to prepare for us a report that will allow us to look at the comprehensive offerings in our district, which schools are using what kind of success rate they're having, so that we really can, as Mr. Leary, I think, intimated, determine which ones are working best in our district, start making some choices, start making some decisions about what's going to work in which school environment, how these systems talk to each other, which I think is ultimately going to be one of the biggest challenges, but ensuring that we are including both curriculum priorities as well as technology priorities, that we can begin with just a baseline to understand exactly what's being used in the district so that we can make some wise choices moving forward. So that was a motion made by Ms. Scott, seconded by myself. I'd put that forth to the full committee for a vote.
Move to approve by, that's a long, I can't reiterate that whole motion. Essentially, just to get a report on what various software packages are being used by what particular, what I said.
On the motion.
What you said, Becky. Motion by Mr. Leary, seconded by Mr. Gendron. Mr. Gendron on the motion?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to bring up the fact that Mr. Silver, in the technology subcommittee, did give us some level of reporting on iReady and various software packages. So rather than having to, clearly we could use more detail, and rather than reinventing the wheel, maybe we could, I don't know, I'd be happy to bring that up in the technology subcommittee, or if you wanted to do it in a combined committee, however you see fit. But that is something that we've been kind of driving Mr. Silva to do through the technology subcommittee.
Okay.
I'm sorry, because we haven't had that. I'm sure I missed the last one. So do we have a report then that already compares X2, all the different packages?
So there's a report from the technology subcommittee in the last packet. It was on the Dropbox that talks about iReady, but doesn't do that comparison.
Oh, so what I'm asking for in terms of the comparison doesn't exist?
That's right.
Okay, because I had looked on the drop. I mean, I'd seen the previous report. I guess what I'm asking is if we can take the next logical step and actually make the comparisons to iReady to all the other packages, because, I mean, again, we've got to have at least 15 that do very similar work okay. So that's great. We can use that as a starting point. The iReady report, which I'm assuming correlates with the iReady report we got. Okay.
Ms. Abrams, did you want to chime in?
No, I just want to, what Ms. Martin is, what she's saying is true. We do have a lot of different software packages out in the district. And so this is the time for us to really take a good comprehensive look at everything. What schools are using and where are we getting the most. So we'll pull that together. And I meet with Mr. Silva regularly, so we'll communicate through this.
Okay. Further discussion? All those in favor of that motion signify by saying aye, and the opposed?
Aye.
That motion carries. Ms. Martin?
Next topic. We did discuss the end-of-year data for the K-8 ELA and mathematics. There is a great deal of information, both on this topic and our language and literacy reporting from across the district. Certainly some highlights where we're seeing improvements. Looking at kindergarten data that is meeting objectives. And again, it's a very complicated report of some trends up, some trends down. I think for myself, as I went through this several times, I have to be honest, I think the biggest lesson I walked away with is that the charge I'd like to put in place for the Curriculum and Instruction Subcommittee for this upcoming school year is that we need to go through our reporting mechanisms and start coming up with easy to understand, succinct reports that will really give, not just the subcommittee, because we're really the least of anyone's concerns, but give parents real information about how our performance levels are moving up and down in each grade, giving them real information that they will find helpful. As I have looked at this data for many, many years, I don't find it particularly helpful. And that's not a fault. I mean, this is the reporting as it has been for a very long time. And I think that, what I'm looking at is just in terms of how we better serve our curriculum initiatives and how we better serve the staff who are doing great work, both at Central and throughout our district, is that we really need to do the work of crafting a reporting instrument that will allow us to tell the story in an effective way and, dare I say, a succinct way. Which may be my failing as well. But, so that is something, again, it's up and down, and there are a lot of different data points within this that I think until we can really present them in a understandable and clear-cut way, really do just give you small data points and don't give us a sense of the big picture. So I would say, Information is available, and I would charge that the subcommittee will be working over the course of the summer and probably into September to come up with a standard format for reporting this information that then we can use on an ongoing basis to move forward. I don't think I need a motion for that, but we'd be working at that as we move forward. That was one of the key conversation points. Next item was the Office of Curriculum Instruction and Assessment, their accomplishments for 2013 and 14. Certainly there was a great deal of work that happened across the district in this area, it being the real bread and butter of what our district is meant to do. Looking at the writing about reading as a focus of our literacy efforts, seeing how that has been implemented across the disciplines, so that people are writing across our students rather are writing across disciplines. Looking at the huge number of new coming students and new incoming students that we welcome this year, and the challenges that posed for the curriculum efforts. We did see Idea Camp continue this summer, ongoing right now. The implementation of Civics Day, idea of my colleague Ms. Scott, that took place with all third graders in the city of Lowell coming to downtown and getting a chance to see the many civic institutions across that we have here in the city. Implementation of Community Service Day by Mr. Gendron, where we saw a number of different activities happening across our district. And then looking at the bringing of more athletics programming at our middle school, championed by my colleague, Mr. Conway. So we saw a great many school committee initiatives that really found their footing in this past year and were implemented in various ways across the district. Another idea that had come from this body was the Family Literacy Nights. They have been ongoing. There was a motion by former Mayor Patrick Murphy asking the superintendent to explore the idea of Family Literacy Nights. We have a number of different activities, some very long-standing, that have gone on in the district over the years. There is a list included within the meeting notes. I would say that one of the key things that we discussed in the subcommittee that I think is the most important message of this is that certainly a lot of activities, a lot of different ways that we try to bring parents in. What I think the maker of this motion intended, and I think for myself as a member of the curriculum subcommittee, is that we'd really like to see us moving forward with a district-wide event, something that ties together, whether it's a grade, whether it's a specific event, something that would be one of those benchmark moments for our students. We talked about this a lot when we were discussing the Civics Day, when you had every third grader in our city having the same experience, the kind of thing that they'll talk about for many, many years. Family Literacy Night could take on that same onus, and certainly in terms of focus, it would be a great thing for our district to focus on as an overall district-wide endeavor. So that was the charge that we kind of foisted upon the curriculum staff. They were kind enough to take it on. So we'll be moving forward, hopefully, with more information around that. Final topic was the family brochures, a discussion of what is distributed to our families at the beginning of the school year and then at the beginning of each grading period. I think one of the key things, and certainly this is something that my colleague Ms. Scott has been very clear about, and I certainly agree with her as we move forward, we need to take these documents and turn them into working documents that will give our parents the information they need around standards, that will give our parents the information they need around providing their own children, whether it's as part of their family life or whatnot, with some of those additional supports. If they know certain topic areas are being discussed, if they know certain projects are coming up, and if they know what specific standards tied to those activities, parents are far better informed and far better able to support their students in really productive ways. It is a real challenge, and I think we all recognize that. Coming up with an instrument that would be able to communicate this with our families in an effective way. I was extremely pleased that the Assistant Superintendent Abrams had shared with me some ideas that she has had and her team to develop this instrument. We had some examples from some other districts that have been struggling, obviously, with the same thing we are. I think the key component points, and I would also certainly defer to my colleague if she'd like to add anything to this, the key components that I'm hoping to see in this new instrument would be clear listings of the actual standards that we'll be working towards. For me, it's very important that we include timelines that parents can track along when things will be covered. And then the final component for me would be kind of the topic area that would give parents some opportunities to augment and at least be able to anticipate what's happening. Those, for me, are the three key components. I'm confident that the assistant superintendent and her team recognize what we're looking for, so I know that they're already working on it, with the intention being to come forward in September with that to be provided. And again, I would defer to my colleague, who was the only, it was a
Oh,
very
I think
small
you
meeting,
explained that
so-
wonderfully, so. Thank you.
There you go. Then I would submit that as a report of progress, Mr. Mayor,
Thank you, Ms. Martin.
which might be a record for curriculum instruction.
Further discussion? Motion to accept the report as a report of progress by Mr. Gendron, seconded by Mr. Leary. All those in favor signify by saying aye, and the opposed, motion carries. Still on the subcommittees, we have a Student Support Services Subcommittee meeting, report of the meeting, Wednesday, July 16th, by Ms. Ross Sikowicz. Madam Chairperson?
Thank you, Mayor. The Student Support Services Subcommittee meeting took place this evening at 5:30. Those in attendance were myself, Ms. Scott, Ms. Martin, Mr. Leary, and Mr. Gendron. School department personnel that were present were Janine Durkin, Assistant Superintendent, Margot Farrick, Director of Alternative Education, Dr. Roxanne Howe, LHS Discipline and Operations Specialist, Jane Mosher-Canty, Council of Student Services, as well as Michael Ortiz, Council of Student Services. Also present was Greg Croto, the Executive Director of the United Teen Equality Center. The first item on the agenda was the 2014-15 Parent and Student Handbook revisions. Assistant Superintendent Janine Durkin and Dr. Howe presented the proposed changes for the 2014-15 Parent-Student Handbooks. Attorney Michael Ortiz and Attorney Jane Mosher-Canty addressed the questions relative to Chapter 222. Highlights of the presentation included information regarding online access to the handbook, annual updates regarding elected officials, staff, and school calendar, discipline section updated with information from Chapter 222, including in-house, short-term, and long-term suspensions and emergency removal, clarification regarding makeup work due to suspension and revision to process for makeup work aligned with Chapter 222, Education Service Plan. Another highlight was the consolidation of major violations to avoid duplications, and additional violation added regarding misuse of technology and e-cigarettes. There was language added on the habitual school offender, failure to compel, and child requiring assistance regulations. There was a reference to the district's attendance intervention plan and updates on the buyback program. So there was also updated language on harassment and the harassment and bullying policy, and updated information regarding school closing and delay, and inclusion of safety protocol options-based response in place of hard lockdown. And the last item was the addition of the condom availability exemption form for Lowell High School. So there was a motion to, I would submit a motion to approve the student handbook changes to the Lowell High School and elementary middle schools handbooks for the 2014-2015 school year.
Motion to make recommendations to these changes to this full body. Motion to approve by Mr. Leary, seconded by Ms. Martin. Discussion on these changes? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Want a roll call? Roll call? Roll call on these changes? Roll call.
Ms. Scott?
Yes.
Mr. Conway?
Yes.
Mayor Elliott?
Yes.
Mr. Gendron?
Yes.
Mr. Leary?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Ms. Ross Sikowicz?
Yes.
7 yeas, approved.
Motion carries. Ms. Ross Sikowicz?
Thank you. The second item on the agenda was the United Teen Equality Center's alternative diploma program. Greg Croto, Director of UTech, presented a report to address the request from the school committee regarding data for the alternative diploma program. Highlights of the presentation included a request for continued funding from Lowell Public Schools to provide 44% of the alternative diploma program instructional costs and 30% of the total program cost. UTech will seek to continue to secure additional private funding for the balance of the program as in past years and looks forward to working with Lowell Public Schools and Project Learn to explore additional resources. An overview of the program, including programmatic changes that took place in 2012, shifting from a self-paced credit recovery model to its current trimester-based school calendar. Program features include project-based learning, wraparound services, pathways to college, civic engagement, community partnerships with Middlesex Community College, Mill City Grows, and the Appalachian Mountain Club. In addition, we were apprised of student demographics, including risk factors, as well as success stories of students who completed the program. We were provided with 2 years of data on the graduates of this program. During the first year of the new model, the program had 12 graduates, representing a graduation rate of over 70% of eligible seniors. In this time, 32 students completed a combined total of 155 academic courses. During school year 2013 and 14, results were very similar, with 11 graduates presenting a graduation rate of 70% of eligible students. Also, a review of the alternative diploma program faculty, which currently consists of 1 full-time English teacher, 1 full-time math teacher, 1 part-time science and health teacher, and American history is currently taught by the program director, and PE is co-taught by an AmeriCorps member and the English teacher. We also received in our packet of information a letter, a recognition from the Massachusetts Department of Education as part of their Mass Grad evaluation efforts. The alternative diploma program model was selected by the UMass Donahue Institute to participate as a case study as one of the 3 implementation award sites throughout the state. So really they were highlighted as a best practice. And so the next steps were to, for the committee, were to continue to monitor data of all of our alternative diploma programs, of the alternative diploma program, and set clear program outcomes district-wide. So there was a motion by Ms. Scott, seconded by myself, to transfer $100,000 from the suspense account to the appropriate line item in order to move forward with the superintendent's recommendation for funding for the UTEC alternative diploma program.
Motion to bring forward recommendation to transfer $100,000 out of the suspense account to fund UTEC program. Motion by Mr. Leary, seconded by Mr. Conway. Roll call.
Ms. Scott?
Yes?
Mr. Conway?
Yes.
Mayor Elliott?
Yes.
Mr. Gendron?
Yes.
Mr. Leary?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Ms. Ross Sikowicz?
Yes.
7 yeas, approved.
Ms. Ross Sikowicz?
And the third and last item on this agenda was centered around the superintendent's goal number 6, and this is the alternative school update. So this includes all of our alternative schools in the system. Margot Farrick, Director of Alternative Education, presented a report to address the request from a school committee member, myself, with regard to an update on our alternative school programming in the district. Highlights of the presentation included a review of the superintendent's 2013-2014 goal addressing alternative education programs in Lowell Public Schools with the objective of refocusing, aligning, and expanding Lowell Public School alternative education programs. There were targeted action steps and evidence of progress to address the goals. The LHS Career Academy data showed increased options for supporting academic growth and career readiness at the LHS Career Academy for students who are at risk in decreased disciplinary infractions from baseline. The Cardinal O'Connell School completed an evaluation and clarification of the 45 to 90-day alternative program and protocols for the support of students at the Cardinal O'Connell, including a redesigned program model presented to the middle school principals for feedback. There was a review of 3 successful grant applications to support alternative programming and the progress on program development as a result of these awards. And there is an anticipated September 2014 launch of the Lowell Public Schools Engagement Center. So in response to the needs of Lowell High School, the transition of the Malloy School into the LHS Career Academy, and a 2-year goal to develop a short-term opportunity for LHS students, the Lowell Public Schools Engagement Center was developed. So next steps that were recommended by by Student Support Services was to place, okay, so the Director of Alternative Education will shift from the daily operations of the LHS Career Academy to district-wide responsibilities. To fund the shift, the LHS Career Academy social worker position will be repurposed into a coordinator. This is a $15,000 budget request. And so there was a motion to transfer $15,000 from the suspense account to move forward with the superintendent's recommendation to add the Career Academy coordinator's position.
Recommendation to proceed with transfer of $15,000 for the coordinator's position. Motion by Ms. Scott, second by Ms. Martin. Discussion? Roll call.
Ms. Scott?
Yes.
Mr. Conway?
Yes.
Mayor Elliott?
Yes.
Mr. Gendron?
Yes.
Mr. Leary?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Ms. Ross Sikowicz?
Yes,
7 yeas, approved.
and I would submit that as a report.
Includes a
progress.
report. Motion to accept the report as a report of progress by Ms. Scott, second by Mr. Conway. All those in favor signify by saying aye. And the opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Still under subcommittees, we have the policy subcommittee meeting, the report of the meeting of Monday, July 14th by Ms. Scott.
I'd
Madam
make
Chairperson?
a motion to delay the report until our next scheduled meeting.
Motion by Ms. Scott to delay the report, seconded by Mr. Leary. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. And the opposed? Motion carries. Delay that to the next meeting. Moving to the next section of the agenda, item number 18, reports of the superintendent. First item, 2014 major accomplishments. Mr. Lang, Assistant Superintendent.
Yep, thank you. This is a report from the superintendent. It's compiled each year from our various school folks and department staff that just lists their accomplishments towards meeting the district's goals each year. This is valuable to us as we start to plan our goals for the following school year, and that's something that is ongoing right now. So within the next few meetings, you'll be presented with the goals for the superintendent's proposed goals for the next year, and a lot of it will come from this, how well we did with attaining our objectives for the current year. So I recommend that be accepted as a report of progress.
I would, if I could, looking at this process where, just time-wise, we'll be getting the superintendent's, both her goals set for the next school year as well, certainly for herself as well as for the district as a whole. I would like to just inform my colleagues, typically the summer and primarily August is when we do go through our evaluation process of the superintendent. Just fair warning that we'll be communicating out the materials so that as we move forward, we'll be able to complete the initial part of the superintendent's evaluation that will be upcoming, and it will obviously include what the goals will be for the following year. On top of that, I just wanted to certainly commend the work that's happened in the district. The breakdown between the superintendent and the established goals we had put in place previously, looking at all the different subject areas where we've seen great improvements, is certainly encouraging to see the breadth of work that's going on in our district, and I would offer my thanks for the report. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is major accomplishments. I think just the most significant accomplishment is this body actually moved forward with our entire building and facility program, which I think is something coming up in the fall is really going to be the major initiative. K through 12, obviously, as we prioritize different buildings first, but that's something we're going to really need to be aggressive with as we get into September. And if we're fortunate enough to be accepted, beginning to work in the 2015 year with the city and the community at large about how that process is actually going to lay out. So I think that's definitely as an accomplishment. I think that's, we haven't spoken about it in a little while. It's off the hot burner as we wait for the fall, but it's something that is going to have major significance to not only the school system, but to the entire city. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Leary. Further discussion? Motion to accept the report as a report of progress and place on file by Mr. Conway, seconded by Mr. Gendron. All those in favor signify by saying aye, and the opposed. That motion carries. Next report from the superintendent, induction program and mentoring. Mr. Lang.
Thank you. This is a report in response to a motion by Mr. Leary regarding a request On the establishment and induction program, mentoring for administrators in the district, similar to what we offer for the Teacher Academy for teachers. And this report the superintendent prepared. I think one of the highlights of the report is a new partnership we have developed with UMass Lowell, Project Lead, where they actually secured grant funding through the state to offer a new principal induction program and licensure program that we're going to be embarking on in the fall. So that's one of the highlights of the report, and submit this as a report of progress.
Discussion, Mr. Conway?
Move to approve.
Motion to approve by Mr. Conway, seconded by Mr. Gendron. All those in favor, motion to accept and report as a report of progress. All those in favor signify by saying aye, and the opposed, motion carries. Next report from the superintendent, 2014 summer school programs. Mr. Lang?
Thank you. This is an overview of the existing grant-funded programs. All of our summer school programs are grant-funded in the district. We have 11 schools this summer that have some form of elementary, middle, or high school programming. Approximately 1,800 students are participating in our summer school program. And again, another highlight of the program is the STEM Idea Camp, which is operating out of the Rogers School again this summer. So this is a listing of all of our existing programs, along with dates and times that they're running. And I recommend the committee accept it as a report of progress.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Lane. Motion to accept the report as a report of progress by Mr. Gendron, seconded by Ms. Martin. On the motion, Ms. Martin?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Just a comment, looking this year at 1,800 students participating, that's an improvement, certainly, and I think that's good news. I do think it's important to note at this point every year, our summer school program is sometimes the single thing that can take a child who has struggled and get them back on track. It is amazing the gains that can happen for students when they go through these summer school programs. Every year we receive reports, September, October, that will tell us that you will see students who will make full year, sometimes year and a half gains in their achievement and their mastery of topics because of this somewhat truncated but certainly impactful summer programming that they have access to. It is funding dependent, and we do have a lot of challenges, I think, funding it over the years, but it is one of those initiatives that we have in place thanks to the great staff that do the admin work around it. Ms. Roche-Lofini, I know, does a great deal of work, but also all the teachers, our teachers who teach all year long, who come back and are part of the summer program and have a real impact on our students and on their ability to start in September, sometimes with huge gains over the course of just this, again, this shortened time frame. I would just, certainly I'll be supporting accepting the report as a report of progress, but I would also anticipate that we will be able to look forward to a follow-up report in that September, October timeframe based on the administration's work on this, so that we can, again, see what the actual gains are from this significant investment. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Ms. Martin. Motion to accept the report. Oh, we did. All those in favor of that motion signify by saying aye. And the opposed? That motion carries. Legal opinion on nepotism policy. This was referred to the policy subcommittee, which that report is delayed. So I guess motion to delay this, or I guess it was referred to the subcommittee, so that's already in discussion. So motion to delay until the next meeting by Mr. Conway, seconded by Mr. Gendron. All those in favor signify by saying aye, and the opposed, motion carries. Next report, item number 22, CTI Family Resource Center. Mr. Lang?
Yes, thank you. This is a report offered in response to a motion by Mr. Leary regarding the superintendent meeting with community teamwork about the feasibility of some joint partnering around the Family Resource Center and their outreach center process. The superintendent did meet with Karen Frederick, director of CTI, to talk about it. Initially, there had been some discussion and certainly willingness on both sides to work and collaborate together. I think the fact that we're actually moving into the Bon Marché and we're going to be located in the same building with them is going to immediately open up some avenues, which is positive now that that site has been determined. And I do know that both our Family Resource Center and some of the CTI services, we can look to see if there's different ways to refer families for really that holistic support that they may need. So I'd submit this as a report of progress in response to Mr. Leary's motion.
See, I can just, Mr. Mayor, I could visualize knocking down like a hole in the wall
Larry?
between the two. That would just, right there is the way to make things happen. So go with that vision, I think, is the way to go. It's a great motion. Well,
Motion-
it's
motion
going to
to-
be aesthetically pleasing to it, so.
Further discussion? Motion to accept the report as a report of progress by Ms. Scott, seconded by Mr. Conway. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And the opposed, motion carries. Item number 23, satellite libraries. Mr. Lai?
Yes, thank you. This is a report offered in response to a motion by former Mayor Murphy. At the time, the city was applying for some grant funds to possibly open up some satellite libraries after hours and outside of the regular course of the school day. Unfortunately, the city's grant application was not funded. It is certainly something that we're still interested in exploring, and as other grant opportunities present themselves, we'll avail ourselves to the application process. But at this point in time, unfortunately, because grant funds or some kind of funding source would be necessary, we're going to need to just continue to look for funding opportunities. But submit this as a report of progress in response to the former motion.
Discussion? Mr. Conway?
Move to approve.
Motion to approve by Mr. Conway, seconded by Ms. Martin. All those in favor to accept the report as a report of progress signify by saying aye. And the opposed, motion carries. Next report, Colley Stadium track renovation. Mr. Lai?
Thank you. Again, another report in response to, actually, this was a joint motion between Mr. Leary and former member Mr. Gignac, requesting the superintendent work with the city administration to provide some recommendations and funding sources to enhance Colley Stadium. And I'm happy to report we had a press conference out there a few weeks ago. Progress on the track renovation is going very well. They're on schedule. We look like we're still going to hit that August 8th deadline. So that is going very well. We actually were able to add some additional lanes for high jumps and redesign the site, high, long, and triple jumps. So redesign the site a bit to really be more conducive to hosting some of the bigger meets that we haven't been able to in the past. So happy to report that all is going well, and hopefully we'll be out there mid-August for a groundbreaking. But would submit that as a report of progress.
Thank you, Mr. Lang.
And Mr. Mayor, I think if this is already mid-August, I'm thinking for the August meeting, perhaps we could all meet there and do a few laps prior to the meeting, work out some anxiety, some stress, and things will probably go smoothly.
I'm good with that. Do I hear a motion? I don't hear a motion on that.
Except as a report of progress, please.
Motion to accept the report of progress by Mr. Gendron, seconded by Mr. Leary. All those in favor signify by saying aye, and the opposed, motion carries. Next item, item number 25, Council for Collective Bargaining. Mr. Lang.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This report is actually in response to a motion that you had filed requesting the superintendent report on the process that was utilized to select the Council for Collective Bargaining. I outline how we actually went about it with the committee at the time back in 2005, having to find new representation. The committee solicited proposals basically from both firms or individuals who were interested in representing them in collective bargaining. They went through an interview and review process, and ultimately back in, at some point in June, I couldn't find the exact date, but June of 2005, did select and appoint Attorney Hall to represent them as a part-time collective bargaining counsel. And he has been on staff doing that ever since. So I hope this report is responsive to your request, and I'd submit it as a report of progress.
Motion to accept the report as a report of progress by Mr. Leary, seconded by Ms. Ross Sikowitz. All those in favor signify by saying aye. And the opposed, motion carries. Next report is a report on math coaches. Mr. Leary, Mr. Lang.
Yes, thank you. This report is a response to a motion by former committee member Mr. Gignac, requesting the superintendent provide a report on the staffing levels of our math coaches throughout the district. This year, we do have full-time math coaches in a few of our buildings, the Bartlett and the Pine, which are the 2K to 8s, the Merkland School because they were a level 4 school, and the Robinson also utilized some of their school-based funding to have a full-time math coach. All of our other elementary and middle schools still maintain the shared model, so they each have a half-time math resource teacher. This is certainly something we look at every budget year, trying to see if we could support moving to the full-time model, and that's something we'll continue to do in years to come. But I provide this as a report and in response to the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Lang. Mr. Gendron?
Comment. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Lang, one of the, I got some feedback from some of the principals where they share coaches across a elementary and a middle school, that it sometimes is a difficult thing to do because the curriculum is so varied. Almost seemed like a better strategy to share math coaches across schools of the same type so that the curriculum is more narrow and therefore the coaches can be more effective. Is there any thought been given to that kind of approach?
I wholeheartedly agree with you, and perhaps Mrs. Abrams could weigh in more. I think the only school scenario we have that with is at the Riley and the Sullivan School. And a lot of times it just works out because there's an odd number of elementary and middle schools, so there has to be a pairing somewhere. And where that's just geographically, they're on the same lot. The individual who was in that role actually had a relationship at both schools, and it became a personality thing, where she really just worked well with both Riley and the middle school, the Sullivan Middle School populations, and that was the one school that we had to have an elementary and a middle school paired up. I think, and again, Mrs. Abrams could talk to this, the goal is really to move to the full-time model at each of the schools. But all of our other half-time people are either all in a middle school or all in an elementary school. It's that one pairing that is kind of the odd pairing.
Oddly enough, that's where I get the feedback.
That's where you got it from. Yeah.
Further discussion? Motion to accept the report as a report of progress and placed on file by Ms. Scott, seconded by Ms. Ross Sikowitz. All those in favor signify by saying aye, and the opposed, motion carries. Next report from the superintendent is a library media specialist. Mr. Lang.
Yes, thank you. This is a report offered again in response to a motion by Mr. Gignac requesting the feasibility and the cost of reinstating the library media specialist in the district. It wasn't quite as easy as just giving a cost for the library media specialist, because in the year that they were actually cut, half of our schools, about half, had full-time library media specialists. Another half had instructional technology specialists. So there was a combination between the two positions. But it basically equated to one kind of FTE per building that focused on the library media transactions that occurred daily. The cost to actually reinstate that one FTE each of the buildings would be approximately $1.6 million in salaries, and then benefits beyond that. And we just haven't been able to manage to work that back into the budget the last few years. Again, similar to the math coaches, it's a number and a concept we evaluate each year, and the hope would be in the long term to return that one FTE to each of the buildings to have an additional body working with the libraries and media in general. So I offer this as a report of progress in response to the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Lang.
Accept as a report of progress, please.
Motion to accept the report as a report of progress by Mr. Gendron, seconded by Mr. Leary. All those in favor signify by saying aye, and the opposed, that motion carries. Next item is a report from the superintendent on Education Pioneers Opportunity. Mr. Lang.
Thank you. This, I believe, actually was brought up at a curriculum subcommittee earlier this spring, and we've been kind of shortlisted with this group about possible placements to come on board for a year and engage in it'd be a 10-month, it would start in September and go till June, for them to actually place an individual in our district to work as the Education Pioneer Analyst Fellow. One of the things we've been obviously working, both in the school department and with Susan Lynn, to actually try to identify some different funding sources for this, because it would be grant funding. The way their calendar actually works, we would need to start interviewing some of the potential candidates that they would see for a match for us as early as next week, and then make some decisions in late July, early August. So we're asking on the second page for approval. We think this is really an outstanding opportunity for us. It's a 10-month commitment, so it's not long-term. But we're asking the committee to approve a salary of $45,000 for this Education Pioneer analyst. That's the amount of pay that they would receive if we're able to secure grant funding to pay for this, because we need to move on it before the August meeting. So the request and the recommendation would be for you folks tonight to approve a salary of $45,000 to fund a full-time Education Pioneer Analyst Fellow just for the 2014-15 school year, pending we're able to identify and get approved grant funds for that. The only additional cost to the district would be, in partnership with the group Education Pioneers, $10,500 that we're also seeking in a grant. So it's a total of $55,000, and that pays for our partnership with them and training and support for this individual over the course of the year. But today we'd be looking just for the approval of the 45 pending grant funding, and then if we would come back to you with a contract request under permission to enter for the 10-5 if we're able to secure this. So that would be the recommendation.
Motion to accept the recommendation by Ms. Martin. Second by Mr. Leary. Roll call.
Ms. Scott?
Yes.
Mr. Conway?
Yes.
Mayor Elliott?
Yes.
Mr. Gendron?
Yes.
Mr. Leary?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Ms. Ross Sikowicz?
Yes.
7 yeas, approved.
Motion to accept the report as a report of progress as well by Mr. Conway, second by Mr. Gendron. All those in favor signify by saying aye. And the opposed, motion carries. Next item is a quarterly report of outstanding motions. Mr. Lang?
Thank you. Yes, this is an updated listing of the outstanding motions in the various departments. Notes and status have been updated. We would recommend at this point in time any of the items that are tagged and colored as complete would be removed from the list.
Yeah.
And this is the list that's reported quarterly. So I'd make that as a recommendation.
Motion to accept the report as a report of progress and place on file by Ms. Ross Sigowitz, second by Ms. Scott. All those in favor? I'm sorry, Mr. Gendron?
On the
I'm
motion,
sorry.
thank you. Item number 18, Mr. Lang, which is, was the request to work with the MIS Director and Technology Subcommittee to develop a consistent strategy for using websites and social media across the district. We have not addressed that yet, so that is, I would not count that as completed. We were trying to have a meeting this week to get a recommendation for how we would do that across the district, but we weren't able to schedule that, so I think we're going to schedule the end of the month, and that's going to be the primary item on the agenda. So if you would, I'd like to request that we remove that from the completed list and keep it open.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gendron. Further discussion on the reports? Quarterly report. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed?
You just did it.
We all set? Ms. Ross Sigowitz, was there something in this report?
Oh, we missed. No. Sorry. Oh, the website. Ooh, sorry.
Okay.
The one for the websites by Kristen Rosikowicz and myself request the superintendent create a performance plan and set expectations for staff on the websites. I don't think
Which
that's
number?
been completed.
Which number?
I'm sorry, number 13.
We did do that, actually. Well, we presented that at the Technology Subcommittee back in April. Mr. Silver and his staff had developed like a 10-point monthly checklist where they're working with the web managers at the schools to go in and verify and validate content. And that was, if you'd like, I don't have a problem taking that off because it's going to be addressed again when we do have that tech subcommittee. But they did develop a protocol.
So they should all be up to date at this time? Is that,
No, the protocol was going to be implemented for the coming school year.
okay.
But we still have the question.
Yeah, if we could take it off until we get the update.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, if we could take it off until we get an update.
That's fine.
Thanks.
Further adjustments to the report? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. List of eligible teachers. Mr. Lang.
Yep, thank you. Just present for your approval the list of eligible teachers dated July 16th, 2014, and recommend your approval.
Move to approve by Mr. Conway, second by Ms. Rosikowitz. All those in favor signify by saying aye, and the
Aye.
opposed. Motion and report is adopted. Next item, item number 31, personnel report. Mr. Lang?
Thank you again. This is a detailed report listing all of the known retirements, resignations, new hires, promotions, dated July 9th, 2014, and would recommend you accept this as a report.
Motion to accept the report as a report of progress by Ms. Martin, second by Ms. Rosikowitz. All those in favor signify by saying aye, and the opposed. That motion carries as well. Last report of the evening, home education. Mr. Lang?
Yes, recommend your approval on this. We've had a request from a parent or guardian to homeschool their child. This would bring the total number of children being homeschooled in the district to 42. Request your approval for this.
Motion to accept the report as a report of progress. No, excuse me, accept the report. We need to approve, allowing this.
Accept the grant permission to
Accept the
allow this parent to
recommendation.
homeschool.
Motion to accept the recommendation by Mr. Conway, seconded by Mr. Gendron. Roll call.
Ms. Scott?
Yes.
Mr. Conway?
Yes.
Mayor Elliott?
Yes.
Mr. Gendron?
Yes.
Mr. Leary?
Yes.
Ms. Martin? Ms. Rosikowicz?
Yes.
7 yeas, approved.
Moving on to new business. Vote to accept a gift of $5,000 to support IDEA Summer Camp from the Kronos Company. Motion to accept, Mr. Gendron, seconded by Ms. Scott. Roll call.
Ms. Scott?
Yes.
Mr. Conway?
Yes.
Mayor Elliott?
Yes.
Mr. Gendron?
Yes.
Mr. Leary?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Ms. Rosikowicz?
Yes.
7 yeas, approved.
Item number 34.
Mr. Mayor, before you go on, excuse me,
Mr.
I'm wondering if we go about sending the appropriate thank yous to Kronos, and I don't know if we can even invite representatives to come visit the IDEA camp or something like that to get them involved, but it's nice to see corporations like this reaching out to public school districts to sponsor programs like this. It doesn't happen as much anymore. So, thank you.
Mr. Lang?
No, we do. We standardly will send a letter of thank you and to each of these folks. But I will check and see if they certainly can attend one of the IDEA camps. We still have another week and a half or 2 weeks going. They may already, but we'll certainly reach out and invite them in.
Yeah, since the crash of 2008, so many companies cut back on all of their philanthropic efforts. It's nice to see them reaching out to us. So that'd be great.
Thank you. Next item, 34, permission to post supervisor of attendance. Motion to approve by Ms. Rosikowicz, second by Ms. Martin. Roll call.
Ms. Scott?
Yes.
Mr. Conway?
Yes.
Mayor Elliott?
Yes.
Mr. Gendron?
Yes.
Mr. Leary?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Ms. Rosikowicz?
Yes.
7 yeas, approved.
Next item, permission to post system-wide student database administrator. Move approval by Mr. Conway, second by Mr. Leary. Roll call.
Ms. Scott?
Yes.
Mr. Conway?
Yes.
Mayor Elliott?
Yes.
Mr. Gendron?
Yes.
Mr. Leary?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Ms. Rosikowicz?
Yes.
7 yeas, approved.
Next item, we'll take, if there's no objection, item 36 and item 37, two program directors, PALS, I strike that, there are different positions. Item number 36, permission to post PALS program director. Motion to approve by Ms. Martin, second by Ms. Rosikowicz. Roll call.
Ms. Scott?
Yes.
Mr. Conway?
Yes.
Mayor Elliott?
Yes.
Mr. Gendron?
Yes.
Mr. Leary?
Yes.
Ms. Martin? Ms. Rosikowicz?
Yes.
7 yeas, approved.
Next item is permission to post PALS program specialist. Motion to approve by Mr. Gendron, seconded by Ms. Rosikowicz. Roll call.
Ms. Scott?
Yes.
Mr. Conway?
Yes.
Mayor Elliott?
Yes.
Mr. Gendron?
Yes.
Mr. Leary?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Ms. Ross Sikowicz?
Yes.
7 yeas, approved.
Last permission to post is a Media Technology Support Liaison. Motion to approve by Ms. Scott, second by Ms. Rosikowicz. Roll call.
Ms. Scott?
Yes.
Mr. Conway?
Yes.
Mayor Elliott?
Yes.
Mr. Gendron?
Yes.
Mr. Leary?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Ms. Ross Sikowicz?
Yes.
7 yeas, approved.
We have one item under convention conference requests. Lowell High School football team, along with their coaches, John Florence, Daniel Graham, David Casey, Tom Thornton, and Paul Franker, request permission to travel for a preseason football camp at Camp Winnicke in Moultonborough, New Hampshire, from Thursday, August 21st through Sunday, August 24th, 2014. The cost of the camp and transportation, approximately $10,000, will be paid by the Friends of Lowell High Alumni Football Funds. Additional insurance coverage will be provided at a cost of $600 from the Lowell High School Athletic Department budget. Move approval by Mr. Leary, seconded by Mr. Conway. Roll call.
Ms. Scott?
Yes.
Mr. Conway?
Yes.
Mayor Elliott?
Yes.
Mr. Gendron?
Yes.
Mr. Leary?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Ms. Ross Sikowicz?
Yes.
7 yeas, approved.
We have one item under professional personnel. Members of the United Teachers of Lowell hereby request to donate 18 sick leave days to Dolores Lanoyu, Lincoln Elementary custodian. Motion to approve by Mr. Conway, seconded by Mr. Gendron. Roll call.
Ms. Scott?
Yes.
Mr. Conway?
Yes.
Mayor Elliott?
Yes.
Mr. Gendron?
Yes.
Mr. Leary?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Ms. Ross Sikowicz?
Yes.
7 yeas, approved.
Last item, adjournment. Motion to adjourn by Mr. Leary, seconded by Ms. Martin. All those in favor signify by saying aye. And the opposed, motion carries. This meeting is adjourned. Have a good evening.